Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to look at the high-stakes reality of keeping your home comfortable in, well, an incredibly unpredictable environment. If you own a home, you already know that keeping the temperature just right, it's not a luxury. It's a daily battle. And today, we're going to break down exactly what your system is fighting out there, why it inevitably fails, and, best of all, how you can save a massive amount of money when it finally does.
So picture this. It's a 95-degree day, the humidity is absolutely suffocating, and suddenly, that cool breeze coming from your vents, it just stops. Your air conditioner, the absolute unsung hero of your home, has officially quit on you. It's literally the ultimate man versus nature narrative, playing out right in your own living room. But to understand why this hero falls, we really need to understand what it's up against first. Which brings us to Section 1, the villain, an extreme climate.
What's really wild here is the sheer contrast. Think about it. In the summer, your system is battling mid-90s temperatures with heat indices soaring way past 105 degrees. But it's not just cooling the air, right? It's fighting heavy humidity, pulling massive amounts of moisture out of the air that would otherwise breed mold in your house. Then, fast forward to winter, the whole environment just flips to sub-zero polar vortexes, freezing temperatures that force your furnace to run continuously for days on end just to keep your pipes from bursting. 130 degrees, let that sink in. That is the incredible temperature swing your HVAC system actually endures between the summer peaks and the winter lows. This is the ultimate battleground we're talking about. It puts a massive physical strain on the metal, the electrical components, the moving parts. But surprisingly, the temperature in the air isn't the only environmental hazard your system is facing out there. Yeah, so the crazy part is that it's not just the air, it's the ground beneath your feet. In areas near water, like out by Geist Reservoir or the Fall Creek watershed, homes are often sitting on this really heavy clay soil. With seasonal moisture changes, that clay shifts. It moves, and this movement actually physically pulls at your house, tearing ductwork connections apart and creating these tiny system-killing microleaks in your refrigerant lines. The environment is quite literally pulling your equipment apart from the ground up.
And that leads us to Section 2, Anatomy of an HVAC Failure. Okay, so one of the absolute most common and damaging warning signs is something called short cycling. This is when your furnace turns on for, say, 90 seconds, abruptly shuts down for 3 minutes, and then just repeats that loop endlessly without ever actually warming up your house. And look, this isn't just annoying, it is a huge red flag. It's usually warning you of a failing limit switch, maybe a dirty flame sensor, or even a cracked heat exchanger. It wastes your energy and actively destroys the system. And then there are the sounds. You can actually self-diagnose an incoming breakdown if you just know what to listen for. Hear a grinding noise? That usually means worn bearings in your blower motor. Squealing? That points to belt or motor issues. Banging is likely loose fan blades smacking the housing. And if you hear a rattling or a sharp clicking, well, that's often the sound of a failing compressor. Bottom line, if you hear these spooky sounds, failure isn't just possible, it's imminent. Because you see, it's a cascading failure. It is rarely just one thing breaking out of nowhere. First, that shifting clay soil we talked about causes a tiny, almost invisible refrigerant leak at a connection point. Now, the system has low refrigerant, so your compressor has to overwork and run constantly just to try and cool the house down. Finally, all that constant running overheats and stresses the electrical components until, pop, a capacitor simply blows. One little shift in the dirt basically destroys the entire electrical system. So what do we do about it? Section 3, the intervention, professional diagnosis.
Let's demystify what actually happens when a fully stocked service truck rolls into your driveway. A true professional intervention always follows a strict 3-step process. First up, fast and accurate diagnosis using actual testing equipment. No guessing allowed. Second, transparent flat rate pricing given right up front, before a single wrench is even turned. So there are absolutely no surprises. And third, the quality repair, followed by rigorous testing to ensure the fix is actually going to hold up against our climate.
Which brings us to the big money question in Section 4, the financial reveal, repair or replace. It is the ultimate question staring you right in the face when a technician hands you an estimate. When does it stop making sense to keep fixing this thing? And when is it officially time to just replace the whole system? To answer this, there's a fascinating and incredibly practical financial tool that'll help you make the right call. It's called the $5,000 rule, and honestly, it's brilliant in its simplicity. Here's how it works. You take the cost of your quoted repair and you multiply it by the age of your HVAC unit in years. If that number exceeds $5,000, replacing the unit makes way more financial sense than fixing it. So, for example, if you're quoted a $400 repair and your system is 15 years old, well, 400 times 15 equals $6,000. Boom, you're past the threshold. It's time to upgrade instead of throwing good money at a dying machine. Because the harsh reality is that systems over 15 years old are just living on borrowed time. Not only are the parts wearing out, but the technology itself is becoming completely obsolete. For instance, a lot of older systems run on R22 refrigerant, which has been entirely phased out. Since it's so scarce now, fixing a leak and recharging an R22 system is just incredibly expensive. At that point, a repair is really just a tremendously expensive Band-Aid. Let's talk numbers in Section 5, the cost of comfort. So, the size of your home directly dictates the required capacity and, of course, the cost. For a smaller, say, 1,200 square foot home, you're looking at roughly $4,500 to $8,500 for a replacement. A 2,000 square foot home, that jumps to somewhere between $6,000 and $12,000. Now, keep in mind, if you live in an older home, kind of like those beautiful historic houses near Fort Harrison, your original ductwork might actually be undersized for modern central air, which means you might need duct modifications, and that can definitely push these estimates a bit higher. But hey, here is some incredibly good news to soften that blow. Under the 2025 federal tax relief rules, you can claim up to 30% of the cost for qualifying high-efficiency upgrades. That's capped at $600 for air conditioners and a massive $2,000 for heat pumps. So while replacement is for sure a big investment up front, these incentives heavily subsidize making the move to a much more efficient and reliable system. Okay, before we wrap up this explainer, I've got one final completely free weapon for your homeowner's arsenal. It's the number 3, specifically the 3-minute rule. If you turn your air conditioning off or if the power flickers during a storm, you absolutely must wait at least 3 minutes before turning it back on. Why? Well, because the refrigerant pressure inside the lines needs time to equalize. If you force that compressor to restart immediately against all that high pressure, you heavily strain the components, and you can literally kill your compressor right there on the spot. Which leaves us with this final thought. Could practicing a simple 3-minute wait save you thousands of dollars this summer? Absolutely, it could. By understanding the wild environment your system is battling, listening for those early warning signs, and knowing exactly when to repair versus replace using that $5,000 rule, you are no longer at the mercy of your climate or a sudden breakdown. You've got the knowledge to take control of your home's comfort. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and honestly, I highly encourage you to go check those furnace filters right now.